This is an extension of today's lesson on page 363. Today, during our session, we went over numbers 3 through 13, but now I'm going to go over number 14. And in this problem, we were asked to determine f of negative 6, or can we determine f of negative 6? And if so, how could we find it? To explain this, I'm going to kind of jump back to problem number 13, where we were asked to evaluate f of 4. And when we did this, we looked on the graph and said, all right, if we're looking for f of 4, we figured out that that's where x is equal to 4. So we cruised on up to the graph, said, okay, here's where x is equal to 4. And then we went up to where this actually existed on the graph itself. Let me get all this extra stuff out of the way here. We went up to the graph itself at x is 4 and realized that this was that constant part of the graph that's going to the right forever, meaning it's at a flat situation. And the output, or f of 4, is the height. So we looked over to where the height is at that point, and we realized it's 3, hence why we got our answer that f of 4 was equal to 3. Now we're going to do the same thing for f of negative 6. So let me change up my color here. Let's go pink. Let's go to where x is equal to negative 6. But you notice that x is equal to negative 6 is somewhere over here on the left side of the graph where we don't actually have information. So even if we were to think about negative 6 being right there and we were to cruise on up to the graph, we can't say where it exists visually, but we do see that this graph itself is effectively like a parent function of an absolute value. It's going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, which means to imply that it would go up 1 and over 1 again if this absolute value continued like the arrow says it would. So effectively what that means is that we would be at a height of 6 over here. So long story short is, can you determine f of negative 6? Definitely, and that would be at a height of 6, because we used our knowledge of this rate of change of how this absolute value, this piece, this blue line was changing, and that said it was going up 1, left 1, and if this pattern continued like it did, once we went up 1 from 5, we would get to a height of 6, hence why our outcome is at 6. How do we find it? We use the slope.